Hey guys, I break down the most jaw-dropping finds from Antiques Roadshow. Only the best, no filler. Plus, I give my take on their current value. What do you think they're worth? Drop your guess in the comments. A lifelong collector, the guest shared that her parents purchased these striking artworks in Paris in the late 1950s or early 1960s. They had a favorite gallery on Rue de Faubourg, run by an enigmatic woman named Iris Claire, known for curating avant-garde pieces. The appraiser immediately recognized them as the work of French artist Gaston Chazac, a true outsider in the art world. Largely self-taught, Chazac embraced abstraction, drawing inspiration from prehistoric imagery and children's art. At the same time, he was deeply influenced by Picasso, so much so that he jokingly called himself Picasso in clogs. His unconventional style made him both celebrated and controversial in France, but by the 20th century, his work had become widely admired. The guest collection included 3 distinct pieces: a collage, an ink drawing, and an oil on canvas. The appraiser explained that Chazac began experimenting with collage in the 1960s, shortly before he died in 1964.
I would value the collage at between $20,000 and $40,000.
His rising popularity was reflected in the valuations.
The oil on canvas between $30,000 and $50,000, and the drawing at between $5,000 and $10,000.
You are surprising me.
They're wonderful pieces.
Very surprised.
As the appraiser wrapped up, the expert made an unexpected connection. Arizona petroglyphs meet high-end French outsider art. What began as a family collection had turned out to be a stunning and valuable link to one of France's most unique modern artists. Some pieces of history come with a story so wild they almost sound like a legend. A guest brought in a set of worn-out leather motorcycle gear, explaining that his mother had originally made them. After Evel Knievel's famous jump at Caesar's palace in 1967, he had brought them to her for repairs. But in true daredevil fashion, he never came back to pick them up or pay for the work. The appraiser examined the leathers closely. They were clearly battle-worn, with scuffs, tears, and patches covering the suit.
When we look at this, the condition, this has obviously been in a wreck. Look here on the back of the elbow, there's a blowout there. There's lots of road rash there. There's an overpatch here, which I believe there's a puncture on the back side of that.
It was obvious these had seen action, but the big question remained. Were they from the Caesar's Palace jump, the one where Knievel's failed landing sent him tumbling end over end in a brutal crash? The guest was convinced, pointing out marks that lined up with the infamous fall, but without solid proof, the appraiser couldn't say for sure.
I think they just, because wherever he tumbled, there was something on the leather that indicates he fell there.
Evel Knievel had always known he was destined for greatness.
He told me that when he was a kid, he knew he was going to do something great, and so he bought a pickup truck in Butte, Montana.
As a young man in Butte, Montana, he painted his name on a pickup truck and drove to California, determined to make a name for himself, though he wasn't quite sure how. Eventually, he found his calling as a motorcycle stuntman, jumping over cars, buses, and anything else that would draw a crowd. Over time, he became a legend not just for his jumps, but for his larger-than-life personality, appearing on talk shows and cementing his status as an icon. Even without confirmation of their Caesar's Palace connection, they were worth between $40,000 and $60,000 at auction.
These leathers at auction would be $40,000 to $60,000.
Really? That's kind of amazing.
But if they could be proven to be from that historic crash, that number could skyrocket past $100,000. A simple mirror, tucked away in a family home for decades, turned out to be a hidden masterpiece. The guest explained that their grandparents, who owned a home furnishing shop in Liège, Belgium, had purchased it in Paris in the early 1960s.
Like the mirrors, so they put an order in. When they received the order, this one, I had like a little piece that had been broken off, so they didn't think they could sell it, so they just kept it at home because they kind of like the style.
The appraiser immediately recognized the work of Line Vautrin, a French artist known for her innovative jewelry and mirrors.
She was a relative unknown until 1986, when a dealer recognized the importance of her work, and Vogue magazine referred to her as the poetess of metalwork at one point.
Born in 1913 into a family of metalworkers, Vautrin started her career making jewelry before turning to mirrors.
As we can see, it's made of a composite resin, and you can only imagine how difficult it would be, especially with this size, to build up each layer of resin. They're incredibly fragile.
This particular mirror, with its delicate resin layers, mirrored panels, and convex mercury glass, was a prime example of her craftsmanship. When asked about its value, the guest records seeing wildly different price ranges online, from $2,000 to $30,000. Carefully removing the mirror from the wall, they revealed Vautrin's signature on the back, along with a layer of smoky buildup, likely from the guest's cigar-smoking grandfather. This natural aging confirmed its authenticity. In 2016, a similar mirror sold for $27,500, and in recent years, interest in Vautrin's work had surged. The appraiser estimated this piece would now fetch.
Reasonable auction estimate for this mirror, as a beautiful mirror, would be $40,000 to $60,000.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
A guest brought in a painting they had known since childhood, always believing it was a portrait of their mother.
One family member found out that I had it and was a little upset because they felt that it's a valuable painting and I shouldn't just get it.
Later, they learned it was actually from a Serta Perfect Sleeper mattress advertisement, showing a woman waking up refreshed, though with an oddly unsettling dream in the background. The painting moved around over the years, from the bedroom to an office, where an art dealer once offered to sell it. Instead, the guest's father stored it in the garage until they eventually claimed it. Some family members weren't happy about that, so the father valued it at $12,000, giving equal shares to the siblings. The appraiser identified it as an early work by Ralph Goings, best known for his hyper-realistic paintings. While this figural piece isn't as sought after as his later works, it still holds significant value. The final estimate?
Right now, I'd put an insurance value on this at $75,000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The guest was stunned, especially considering their parents originally bought it for just $300 in 1964. The guest and his daughter scored tickets to Antiques Roadshow, but when it came time to bring something in, he realized he didn't own many antiques, except, as he joked, for his wife. So he brought in the one vintage item he did have, a Fender Stratocaster he'd owned for 52 years.
When did you get this Fender?
I got it, I think, in 1965 at a well-with pawn shop. I paid about $135 for it.
Though he hadn't played it in about 8 years, it was once his go-to guitar. It wasn't until he learned it was considered an antique that he decided to store it away. The appraiser immediately recognized it as a Stratocaster from late 1962, but what made it special was its custom color, Sonic Blue. Fender used automotive paint from DuPont, and this particular shade first appeared on 1956 Cadillacs.
And so Fender began to use it, but it wasn't very popular, so there aren't very many of them done in this color.
While other Fender colors like Olympic White and Candy Apple Red were more common, Sonic Blue was rare, particularly because it never really caught on. That is, until the Beatles got involved. Both John Lennon and George Harrison had Sonic Blue Strats, and they famously used them during the recording of Nowhere Man. There are even session photos of the two playing matching guitars. Harrison eventually repainted his with wild designs, but he played it for the rest of his life. Lennon's, on the other hand, has been tucked away in storage for years, adding to the guitar's almost mythical status. The guest originally bought his Strat from a pawn shop in 1965 for about $100 to $135. Over the years, he'd received offers for it, first $35,000, then $40,000, but he turned them both down. The appraiser had good news. In today's market, this guitar could easily fetch $45,000 or more in a specialty vintage guitar store.
A guitar like this might bring $45,000 and maybe even higher.
A lucky thrift store find turned into an incredible surprise for one guest. They had picked up a watch simply because it had a nice weight to it, paying about $100 without knowing much about its history.
May I ask what you paid for it?
I paid about $100 or so.
The appraiser quickly recognized it as a Blancpain Aqualung, a large-sized diver's watch from around 1961. Designed to withstand depths of 1,000 feet, it was an impressive piece for its time.
This watch is very complete. I know you replaced the band. An original rubber strap are very difficult to find, the original rubber straps. The straps can be worth over $1,000.
When asked to guess its value, the guest hesitated, hoping it might be worth a few $1,000s. The appraiser had far bigger news.
I think a low estimate would be $25,000, and I think it more likely would sell between $30,000 and $35,000 at auction today.
Oh my, it's very nice to know.
Realizing its worth, they jokingly admitted they probably shouldn't keep it where they currently do. The appraiser agreed it might be time to get a safe deposit box for this remarkable find. A childhood love for comics turned into an unexpected fortune for one lucky guest. Back in 1962 and 63, as an 11-year-old, they bought Marvel comics for just 12 cents apiece, stashing them away in a box for over 50 years. Now those same comics are worth a small fortune. The appraiser dove right into the collection, recognizing key issues from Marvel's legendary Silver Age.
So all the comics in your collection date from the Silver Age of Marvel, beginning from 1961, and your later book is till about 1967.
The biggest gem, Fantastic Four number 48, featuring the first appearance of Galactus and the Silver Surfer.
In its current condition, the Fantastic 48 alone is a $2,000 to $3,000 comic. Okay.
Fantastic Four number 49, with the first full appearance of Galactus followed closely behind at $1,000 to $1,500. Then came Fantastic Four number 52, introducing none other than Black Panther. The appraiser called it hotter than fire.
Is the hottest character right now in the Marvel Universe, easily at auction. This is a $800 to $1,200 comic.
Other highlights included Avengers number 11, the first Spider-Man crossover with the Avengers, and X-Men number 12, featuring the first appearance of Juggernaut. And that was just 10 comics out of the guest's massive 110-book collection. The final verdict? Stunned, the guest laughed, admitting, "I wasn't exactly thinking of investing at 12 years old."
Conservatively, at auction for the entire collection, I think you easily have $30,000 to $40,000 worth of comics here.
Growing up in Pennsylvania, the guest had to find ways to pass the long winters, so she started writing letters to actors and actresses, collecting autographs along the way. But her most incredible autograph came from an unexpected source, her English pen pal, Puddy. Puddy's brother was in a Liverpool band and had connections to the Beatles. She once promised that if she ever met them, she'd try to get an autograph, and one day she did. What arrived in the mail wasn't just any signed item, it was a Beatles program covered in signatures. The appraiser, who sees a lot of Beatles memorabilia, took a close look, even checking with other experts.
And I would say 99 out of 100 are never authentic.
Right.
When I looked at this, I looked at it carefully and consulted with a couple of the other appraisers on the show, and we all concurred that these were 100% authentic.
Oh.
And it wasn't just one set of autographs. There were 3. John, Paul, George, and Ringo had all signed the front, the inside, and the back. Paul even signed his first name on one, and George had added a personal touch with "To Puddy, George Harrison." The appraiser was stunned, saying this might be the only piece out there signed 3 times by all 4 Beatles. Despite some creases and a bit of tape, the program was still an incredible find. A conservative estimate puts its value at...
Very conservative estimate at auction would be $15,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
The guest hadn't been in touch with Puddy for years, but after hearing the appraisal, she couldn't help but think about how generous her old pen pal had been.